It's time for the new Dane by Local podcast called Let's Get Local. Each month we'll feature DBL members and tell their stories. So let's jump into episode 1. Welcome to the first episode of a new podcast for Dane by Local called Let's Get Local. Today we have a really special meeting here for Dane by Local. We're joined by a number of the inaugural members, 15 people that have been involved in the organization for 15 years. And I'm lucky enough to be able to connect with some of them here on this first podcast. My name's Jason Hafman, if you don't know me. I work at Project Home. We are a proud Dane by Local member. I'm also a volunteer with Dane by Local and happy to do that as well. So first up, we have Phil. Phil, thanks for stopping by and chatting quick.
Thank you.
So Phil, tell us a little bit about your story with Dane by Local, the business you are involved in, and then also how that business is connected to this organization.
Well, our business is Budget Signs and Specialties, and we've been a member of Dane by Local for 15 years now. We got involved with Dane by Local because we feel that it's incredibly important to support local business. The money stays in the community. I just feel like what's missing nowadays is a lack of sense of community.
Yeah, and I find that being involved in the organization, that's what you find with all the people that are really active in the group, is that they really connect with each other, want to support each other, and be there to, even if we're not doing direct business sometimes, just to tell people about some of the great companies and organizations and people that are involved in Dane by Local, and I think that's what it's all about too. So tell me quick about, going back, so 15 years, we were at the start. Were you there at the start?
No, I was not. My partner was the one who reached out and became a member. Since then, Dane by Local has been great. People will, seek us out, because we're members as well. So other like-minded people who recognize that community is important and to support the local economy is really important.
Are we keeping your partner's name on the private here at this point, or are you going to divulge that?
My partner is Mark Pocan.
Okay, he's well known. That's one of the reasons we wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
That's not the point, though. But it's great that at that point, he was so invested in this community. I think that's part of how Mark has been such a great representative as well of the state, because he really cares, and I think you see that throughout.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so getting back into Dane by Local a little bit, what have you seen, just being here today, but then also in some of your other experiences with members, I guess, what sticks out in your mind when you talk about this group and your interactions with people here with Dane by Local?
Well, one thing that sticks out in my mind is John Bishop. There was a minor flaw in a plaque we did for him, and he didn't even notice it, or he didn't care, but I noticed it. So I actually delivered that on a Saturday to his house and made sure he had it like a couple hours before he needed it. So that's kind of another, example of the benefit of going with a local business and, someone who actually cares.
I know Colin Murray and I have talked about that before, about you can't always go into some of those other places and get that same type of feel, same type of customer service. And it comes all the way down to the business owner, but the employees too. That for local businesses, those employees are invested there, and it means a lot to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that just gives you that extra bit of customer service that you don't find every place.
Yeah, definitely. We have, not including myself, we have 3 employees, and we have very little turnover, just because we feel that the less our employees have to worry about what's going on in their daily life, the more productive they'll be, and the better Budget Signs and Specialties will be as a whole.
And with Dane by Local, one last thing for you. When you think about this organization, what do you think it's done for your business over the course of the 15 years?
Oh, it's been great. We have the little decal on the door, and people mention it all the time. People come in and out, and I feel like just being in the directory has driven some business our way as well.
Okay, well, Phil, thanks so much for stopping by. That's Phil Frank with Budget Signs. Good to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now we're joined by Sandy Torkelson, who's also one of the early members of Dane by Local. Sandy, thanks so much for stopping over and talking a little bit. Appreciate you coming by.
Thanks for inviting me.
So, Sandy, first talk about a little bit about your initial involvement with Dane by Local, how that all got started. Tell us.
There was a group of people, Josie and Rick Brooks and a couple other folks that were interested in getting a buy local organization started. There had been one started in other parts of the country, and one of the things is a lot of booksellers had been involved in starting those organizations, probably obviously because our biggest competition at the time is Amazon. It still is. And we really felt the need to have organizations to raise people awareness about why they would want to have a local bookstore and what they needed to do to make sure that would remain in their community. So I was involved pretty much from the beginning, and that's pretty much why that I felt it was important to try to get that message out to the consumer about why it was important that price isn't the only reason you should purchase something, that buying local helps you create the community that you want to live in, that it looks like the community that reflects your values and has the things that you want there. Whether it's going to the local coffee shop, local restaurant, going to a local garden center, you do that because you want those businesses to be in your community.
So you mentioned your bookstore, and I know you're transitioning because you're trying to retire here, right?
Right.
But tell us about that great bookstore that you were such a big that was your heart and soul for such a long time.
Well, we started it when we were quite young. I was 25 years old. I started with 5 other women, and it was one of those things. We just a group of young women just finishing our college education. And again, we had heard that there were feminist bookstores all around the country. It was the kind of the first wave of the feminism, and we were really interested in having a place that reflected those values and was a place for women where they could be creative and have the freedom to meet and talk about all the different issues that were important to us. So we did start from a very political viewpoint, but over the years we have grown to be more of a community bookstore, and now I would say we're one of the only big general bookstore in Madison that's locally owned. But we started from that small base of just wanting to have a place, and that's kind of what businesses are. They are like a third public place, and they can reflect the values of a community, just like when you go to your local garden store that will carry native plants that you might not be able to find at a more commercial enterprise, and because they are invested in providing that for you. And that's something really important to think about when you're purchasing things.
What did this mean to you today to have this meeting this morning with all of these longtime members, old friends, people that were there from the start? What did that mean to you today?
Well, it made me kind of proud to see how we grew from this little group of people meeting around a table at a coffee house to an organization that has well over 500 members. And it shows that you can just, kind of like how I started my book there, you can just start it by a group of people talking together and saying, we really want to do this. And it's remarkable how many people who share that vision will come together and help make that possible.
Sandy, thanks so much for taking a little time for us today. We appreciate it. And thanks for being a member and being just a great local business owner.
Well, thank you. And I'm really proud to be a business owner in Madison because people have been so supportive of local businesses. It's really a great community.
And we continue on this episode, the first episode of Let's Get Local, here for Dane by Local with John Bishop. John, thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure.
So, John, tell us a little bit quick about your business, yourself, and then we'll get into the Dane by Local stuff here. But talk about yourself first, please.
Sure. I'm the founder of Invest Microfinance Cooperative and Invest Microfinance Fund. It's a microfinance investment vehicle that raises investing capital from socially motivated investors here in the U.S., and then we lend to microfinance institutions in developing countries that in turn lend to low-income borrowers with little or no access to credit I founded Invest out of really my conviction that widespread poverty is an existential threat to the environmental sustainability of really the whole earth. And so I saw business I saw strong business as a necessary component of any sustainable economy. And that was one of the beauties of Dane Buy Local. Dane Buy Local was founded by Josie Pardella and Rick Brooks, who maintain that to have a strong community, we have to have profitable and strong businesses. And so that vision resonated very strongly with me. And it guided my founding of Invest as well. So Dane Buy Local is a perfect fit for me and my vision of sustainability and strong business.
So we've got the Coffee Fest, sponsored by Easy Office Products here, going on behind us right now. But earlier this morning, we had a great meeting, and I thought it was such a unique opportunity to hear from so many of the longtime members of Dane Buy Local, some of the initial members and then people that got involved the first year, including yourself. And I thought that was such an amazing opportunity to kind of get the group together and reconnect with the initial mission and what it meant and what it means going forward.
Absolutely. Friends that I haven't seen in quite a while, others I've seen more recently. I was actually recruited to Dane Buy Local by Rick Brooks. I was at actually a sustainability event a couple of weeks before the very first Dane Buy Local breakfast. And Rick invited me to that. And at the time I was working for a local nonprofit, and I said, well, I'm not sure that I fit very well there. He said, you're in favor of sustainability and you see business as a solution. You fit there. Come. And so I went to that first meeting, and I remember that some of us, we didn't know we were supposed to sign up, and we hadn't, and so we were told, well, there isn't enough food. And I remember Lindsay Lee of Cargo Coffee said, no, I'm sponsoring, there's enough food, everybody eats. And I remember thinking that ought to be the tagline, everybody eats. But I lost out in that one. But so Lindsay was there at the beginning. Of course, that's how I got to know Rick. And Rick ended up being the first board member for Invest Microfinance Cooperative. And when I was still trying to figure out how to get Invest going, Rick was there. And in fact, Rick and I talked about his joining the board at a Dane Buy Local breakfast. So Dane Buy Local has been a fairly big part of it. And then it was fun to see Jim Bradley up there from Home Savings Bank. They provided financing to us when no other institution would have. And without that early financing, there's no way we would have survived. So quite a few of the folks up there were good friends, and some of them were really, really pivotal business partners and or members of the board.
I think that's just amazing to kind of see how all these people together can make certain things happen. And I think that's one of the things, the community aspect of Dane Buy Local is something that I think is just undeniable when you get around the group, go to any sort of event, meeting, what have you. You just have people that genuinely care about each other, and even in businesses that are direct competition, they don't see it as competition. We see it as we're all supporting each other.
Absolutely, and another story I was going to tell if we had had more time this morning was
we got time now. Go ahead.
For at our first annual meeting, we had ordered a plaque for Rick to honor his service to us. And we had budget signs do it, and they were another Dane Buy Local member. And there were things, just a comedy of errors. We ordered too late, and their materials didn't come. And the plaque didn't get done till about 2 hours before our meeting. And Phil actually brought it to my house. And I just thought that was that was emblematic of Dane Buy Local. That I just said, Phil, I don't have time to get over there. He said, well, where do you live? And so Phil came by my house, and we looked at it, and he was worried about some defect I couldn't even see. And that was Dane Buy Local to me. Phil came to my house and got it there just in time for the meeting.
A lot of make it work kind of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what you get. One other thing, John, about your business that I thought was brought up during the meeting today, which I loved, was the fact that, okay, we're really focused on local, supporting local here, and that's what this organization's all about. But your business has taken that local approach and you're reaching people so many places, but on a local level still. That's such a unique opportunity, and what a great business.
Yeah, and it was early on. There was and continues to be a conversation within Dane Buy Local, who fits and who doesn't, and early on, I wasn't sure I did, and it was Rick Brooks' vision that he said, "You're supporting local business, a long way away from here, but it is local business, and we're creating links between our community and communities in Zimbabwe and Kyrgyzstan and Nicaragua, but the vision of getting lending capital in at the base and building up local communities and local businesses has been really enjoyable, and I've really appreciated that the folks here at Dane Buy Local have embraced us, even though at first glance it doesn't. They might argue we're not a local business, but I don't think anybody's ever squawked it on. In fact, I think I've been really welcomed and been considered to be an asset in adding diversity to the local business a long way away from here approach to things. And so we've really enjoyed it and really been appreciative of the support we've gotten from this community.
Well, John Bishop, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, we are back with Rose now. Rose, thanks so much for taking time to stop over and talk a little bit more about Dane Buy Local. I know you love talking about Dane Buy Local and the Buy Local movement. But first, before we get into that, please tell us a little bit about your business, Easy Office Products.
Okay, Easy Office Products started in 2006, and it was a complete startup. We didn't acquire another company. We just started with $1. Before we did that, though, I hired Lindsay Stone & Briggs uptown to do quite a bit of market research for us. They interviewed a lot of, at the time, competitors. They've pretty much all gone out of business, but here we are 14 years later. I own the business with my husband, Gary Moles, and Gary and I moved. I'm a Madisonian native, and we moved back to Madison from New Jersey, which is where my husband is from. And he actually gave up running his family business to move back to Wisconsin with me, back to Madison. So we're in business together, and the most interesting thing about being in business with your spouse is that, how shall I say? You got to make sure you're responsible for different things. Otherwise, dinner is not very pleasant. So, but we seem to make it work quite well. We're blessed with great people. We're, of course, business to business. We don't deliver residentially. And we have an amazing team of delivery guys. We call them delivery service reps because they not only deliver the boxes, they take good care of our customers as well.
So with that business, and you talked about kind of your transition coming back to Madison and being in business with your husband, that, again, has to be a unique experience. But tell us, I know during the meeting I thought it was interesting, you talked about where that business started and what your initial product line was, and now how some of your bigger sellers now are much different. So evolving over that time period as a local business, how challenging is that?
Well, I guess it's called annual strategic planning, right? So in the office products world, people use less and less office supplies. So people often ask me why I wanted to start my own office supply company, and I always respond with something to the effect of, I didn't really do it because I wanted to sell pencils and pens and Post-it notes. I did it because I wanted to have my own company. I wanted to be able to offer people jobs, and I wanted to be able to chart my own course with my own people. So it's not really about the product. In fact, we now call ourselves more of a provider of productivity because we help people buy. So you'll often hear anyone at Easy OP, Easy Office Products, say, we don't sell anything, we just help you buy.
It's great. It's great evolution and changing with the times, like you said. Well, first off, thank you for sponsoring Coffee Fest going on now behind us. Appreciate
a privilege
that.
and honor.
Yeah, we like that. And then this meeting that took place this morning, what was that like for you to be up on the stage with all these longtime members and the founders of the organization? You know, what kind of experience was that like for you?
It was an honor. It really was. It's been so many years that we've been a part of Dane Buy Local now that I kind of forgot that we were member number 7. And I think my approach to Dane by Local is a little bit different than most because nobody reached out to me. I reached out to them. And the reason I did is, like I mentioned, hopefully it's not being redundant, but like I mentioned, the local economy is just so very important. And again, to iterate again, people that join Dane by Local, hopefully now, after all these years, understand that it's not about reciprocity. It's not about somebody buying from us and we buy from them, because it doesn't work like that. It's the proverbial pinball effect that I always talk about. You pull the lever and the ball just keeps spinning around.
Well, and I think Dane by Local, the other nice thing about it is it gives us all a bigger voice. Like I've said before, it's like a big megaphone for the local initiative. And so as a local business, being a member, being involved, being in the, all of the website, the guide, all of these things that Dane by Local provides visibility with, that gives you some additional things that you wouldn't otherwise have.
I think one of the things that I try hard to come up with an analogy of, imagine if there wasn't. We're on Monona Drive. Imagine if there's no seafood company. Imagine if there's no Crema Cafe. Imagine if there's no Rosie's Cafe. Imagine all the wonderful local businesses that I think as a general population, we sometimes take for granted because we run over to Walmart. We think the prices are lower. Well, they don't say they're lowest prices. They say always low prices, right? So, and it really is not all about price. Price is important. It is to me. I'm sure it is to you. I'm sure it is to every business. But to your point, the collaborative effort of let's all make sure we all know who's local out there is extremely important to our economy. We couldn't survive without big boxes either, right?
Yeah.
They're important too. So it's just think local first.
Well, Rose, I appreciate your time so much. Thanks for coming over. Thanks for everything you do for Dane by Local, and thanks for sponsoring Coffee Fest.
You're welcome. Thanks for watching.
And we're back here for Let's Get Local with one of the founders of Dane by Local, Rick Brooks. Rick, thanks for stopping by.
Well, Jason, thanks. I'm glad you said one of the founders,
right,
because I was putting together my resume lately, and I've always been a co-founder of things, and we have to recognize, at least I do, that I'm much better when I work with someone working for me, with me, and I'm working for them and with them. So, I was Josie Pradella and I were we carried the idea to Madison, and there was a group of really willing, creative people committed to the Madison community who joined with us. And just today, Jim Bradley, who was the chair of the board for a while from Home Savings, mentioned how exciting it was. For the first few years, we doubled the membership every year. And there was a time when we were the largest. Now I think Madison is the second or third largest in the country. But there's something about making a commitment to supporting each other as small business people that resonates more and more as we get into the connected internet economy. And now, especially when you look at the consolidation of Amazon and not only the big box store folks, but Amazon and Walmart and Google and Facebook, all of those very, very large corporations are all involved in some way in capitalizing on the very interpersonal relationships that make a group like Dane by Local even more important now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's one of the first things about this group and this organization was the personal aspect of it that really rung true for me and wanted me to get more involved. Because I think when you get together at any type of Dane by Local event, there's just a different feel to it. You know, people are all there. It's a good time, obviously, but we all know that we're working together for something.
Yeah. And they're usually fun. It's not only the meetings that make it fun,
right.
Just the one-to-one relationships, business to business. And we have some businesses that are suppliers to many other businesses. And today, it was a pleasure to be back on more or less the 15th anniversary of starting Dane by Local. And there were 15 of us on the stage. And I looked, and the first thing I said was, I've done business with every single one of them for a reason, and I've been rewarded by it, and I hope they have too. Right now, I live 2 hours and 46 minutes south of here, and my family has bought and sold 4 homes through Alvarado Real Estate. Not only my wife and me, but our daughter and her husband, our granddaughter. We've banked at the UW Credit Union Summit and Home Savings Bank. We've had working relationships with virtually every member of the founding group, but also probably a third of or half of the members here in this meeting. So I would offer a challenge to anybody in Dane Buy Local to write down how many business members have they dealt with in the past, well, in their lifetime. And one year, my goal was 200, and I had actually done business with more than 200 Dane Buy Local businesses.
Wow. That's impressive.
Well, you know what, though? It's for a lot of reasons. I say to people who, often one of the problems that we have had, and I specialize this in my academic career, is behavior and social change. We've had a problem because somebody say, where can I get such and such and get a good price? And the problem was, and still is, the first thing that comes to mind is probably not a local store. Mm-hmm. So the second thing that often used to come to mind, we'd say, like office supplies, for example, is what's close and where can I get a really good price and large sales. What I found with a company like Easy Office Products, for example, they will take the time to find out exactly what you need, and they will deliver it to you almost immediately for a very reasonable price. And you get into a bind and they'll help you because their policy is to serve their customers in a way that nobody else does. And larger corporations, I have nothing against them, but their first priority is the bottom line, paying their investors as well as their employees, and that's fine. However, there is something very important to be said for locally owned independent businesses, and it's that interpersonal, caring connection.
Yeah, I think the customer service that you get at local businesses, and I've talked with Colin Murray about this a number of times, but even going into a local store, a local shop with a small staff, that staff understands the product, understands the store, cares about the store and the success of it, and you feel that in your interaction with them. So it's a very different experience than going into a big box store.
Well, and I will say also, I remember in some of the first newsletters of Dane Buy Local what attracted me to certain local businesses. And among the things that stood out for me was I would go in the door of a coffee shop and people would call me by my name. I mean, they knew me. And lately I've been going to a coffee shop where I live that I'm sure is the same here. I bumped into somebody while I was getting my own coffee cup. And one of the owners of the bakery in the coffee shop I was in said to the woman I bumped into accidentally, he said, "Don't mind him, he lives here." But that is the kind of relationships that this is about, and it does matter. And it has to do with the sense of place. I mean, we have very big corporations, international corporations here in Madison, but I bet the people who stay here, or even the people who go, will remember local businesses. And they remember Madison because it was a place that had some kind of value sharing around not only local, but sustainability is still a thread that goes through a lot of the activities of Dane Buy Local businesses, and community giving, all those kinds of things.
Rick, when you and Josie started this, okay, you started off where you did, just one meeting, I think it was, and now to see 15 years later where this organization is, what does that mean to you, and what do you think it means to her as the founders of this thing?
Well, you get to a point where your resume isn't what you're worried about. But if people say, well, what did you do when you were working? I'm retired now, put that in quotes. But and I said, well, I co-founded a number of things. Most people know me because I was a co-founder of Little Free Library, and that's international, and it's thrilling, not because I get any credit for it, but because the idea caught on, and that many millions of people have been affected. Same thing with Dane Buy Local, and it means a lot to me. I've said I helped start a new small business development center where I live. And people would say, well, tell me what's your background with small business. And I said, well, I was one of the co-founders of a group to be one of the largest locally owned independent business networks in the country. And I began telling them about it. And it's one of the things, I think pride is a sin, so I try not to be too proud about it. But it's one of the things that I love talking to people about, because it has made such a difference to not only the businesses and their customers, but to the community as a whole.
So one other thing I wanted to ask you about this whole experience with Dane by Local and you coming back in this group, when you saw everybody here today, and you talked about how you looked down the line and you said you did business with almost all these people, or every one of these people you've done business with, what do you think it says about this organization that 15 years later, that many people will come out to a breakfast meeting on a day in January?
I have no idea.
What? Did I stump you?
No, I mean, it says a lot, obviously, but especially people who've been coming to these meetings for 15 years. There's something here that keeps drawing them, and it isn't just earning a whole bunch of money as a business owner. And I keep saying, you talk to everybody here, and yes, we all believe it's important to earn a profit and earn enough to have a decent living and play a decent, honorable role in the community. That's important, but beyond that, the most rewarding part is that people take the time to find out about you. And, I would say we come together to see how everybody's doing. I mean, you tell me about Project Home, I'd forgotten you do that great stuff. And I see some opportunities there that maybe other people haven't seen. Mm-hmm. And so every meeting to me always was, and will when I come, to say, I wonder how so-and-so might want to meet so-and-so. And Rose and EasyOP have something that people here don't know about. And often we find, I do, new things, different things, opportunities that we never would have found if we hadn't been part of Dane by Local.
It's very true. Rick Brooks, co-founder of Dane by Local, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Good to see you.
Talk to you again. Bye.
Thank you for checking out Dane by Local's new podcast, Let's Get Local, available on YouTube, Facebook, and DBL's website. Join us next month for more local talk.